Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. The next conversation about Latin America amid global shifts will now begin. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. The next conversation about Latin America amid global shifts will now begin. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, could you please take your seats? The next conversation is about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. The next conversation about Latin America amid global shifts will now begin. Please note that this conversation will be in Spanish. We invite you all to wear your translation headsets. Channel 1 is for English, Channel 2 is for French, Channel 3 is for Arabic, and Channel 4 is for Spanish. If you do not find translation headsets on your chair, you may scan the QR code on the screen and use your personal headphones. And now, please welcome to the stage the moderator of this conversation, Derla Cardoso, Head of International at CNN Brazil.
Good morning. I invite you, all you guys, to use your headphone devices because we are going to speak in Spanish for this section. Buen día a todos.
Good morning to everyone. We're going to start this conversation in the midst of the global changes. This is a conversation that starts more topical than ever. We have to understand that the United States position for the region has a return of the Monroe doctrines, which is one of the doctrines that is coming back. And this is one of the references of the new president or second mandate of Donald Trump's mandate. And we also have a new situation with the Caribbean Sea, and we also have Latin America in the midst of a strategic and commercial war between the United States and China. Of course, this is a big investor of the region. And then in this context, that Latin American countries can have. There are some associations that are to be forsaken, new partnerships maybe, or maybe they have to go with the United States or opt for China. Also, what happens with the green economy? Is it a lost opportunity, or do we still have time for this? These are some of the questions we are going to try to answer to in this new conversation. And for this purpose, we're going to call on stage the former president of Argentina, Ramon Puerta. Welcome. And the former president of Ecuador, Jamil Mahuan, please welcome on stage. Very nice to welcome you. Thank you. And to kick off, I'd like to ask a more generic kind of question. I'm going to start with you, dear former President Puerta. What are the challenges of Latin America that we face nowadays? I think that Latin America is not something that is separate from the rest of the world. The world is undergoing a stage of challenge, and we have the transit to the fourth industrial revolution. We have to understand that the institutional contexts that exist are not to be opposed, but AI has to transfer, in fact, realities and not dreams are not reachable. Latin America now is able in this context, but we have to use this intelligence. And the reason why we organize this encounter in Morocco is to try to restructure the space of the South, because now we are to really adapt it in view of the changes in the North, but also in the United States and China and other regions. There are many changes. We are the part of the world is going to certainly export a fairer situation for the world. I have the same question for the challenges of Latin America in these contexts. There is a great Spanish philosopher, Ortega y Gasset. He said, I'm myself and my circumstances. We can't understand the challenges if we don't understand the context. And I like to make a reference to 2 points because we don't have much time. First, the impact of climate change in the geography and also geopolitics. What happens if we keep on losing ice in the Arctic Circle? Let's think about what's going from Russia. Normally, we are able to go through the east and we go through Alaska. We can enter through the Mediterranean by Gibraltar. We can exit by the Suez Canal. We can go down south. We can go around Asia. And also, we can go back to a different point. The navigation routes are changing because of the ice melting. This is something that is going to change the world very quickly. The demographics also stands for 60% of the population that nowadays lives in Asia, 19% in Europe. Probably now we are in the new cycle. The cycle is for Asia. 60% of the population is Asia, 20% is Africa, 60 plus 20 is 80. There is only 20% for the rest of the world, where we have the whole of Europe, the United States, America, and other continents. So these are such huge changes that they are completely changing the landscape of the world. And there are moments in time where we are undergoing changes of time. There's the tsunami of the COVID that came. We are under shock still, and we are thinking of how to come back to the old reality of what was the world of before. Wait, it is a change of times, but there's a change of era where there's no way to go backwards because the old remedies do not work anymore. So I think that these two examples show that we are in a change of era, and this is what we have to organize for Latin America. President Puerta, now we have lots of changes of governments in South America. For example, we have Bolivia with a right-hand president, and they had 20 years of left-hand governance beforehand. So there will also be many other changes to the right for other countries in Latin America. We still have governments of the left, for example, in Brazil. How do you perceive that countries will be able to keep on working hand in hand in addition to the changes of governments, etc.? The problem is not left or right. The problem is dictatorship of democracy. If we work with political parties, there is no democracy without political parties. Democracy with bosses or heads of parties with single parties, not on democracy. The state of Latin America has advanced, has changed, and I'm not worried whether it's from the left or the right. But the important thing is to see that there should be an alternative, and the fact that some people think differently help people to make better decisions. We have learned that in time we need to consolidate the parties to get rid of corruption. Corruption not only is a problem of politics, it's also within the companies of journalists, etc. So it's a state of a system in decomposition. To resolve that, to inject oxygen, we need to inject more respect into these institutions. Okay, I understand. So, dear President, do you think that the ways to negotiate as a bloc or in a bilateral manner, because, for example, in South America, we have the Argentinian president that is not very crazy about America. So do you think that the bloc is threatened by that? Yeah, I'd like to add to what Ramon just said, that I do agree on the fact that it could be a wrong reading of the antagonism between left and right, and that's why we are voting each 4 years. In the whole world, not only in Latin America, people are voting against those in power, and governments lose. In most of the countries, the people is dissatisfied. That's the main common point, and the world structure shows that we are selling our products further and further. So there are more and more distances to sell the products abroad. And so it becomes more and more important to understand the commercial game and the centers of consumption between the United States and China. And this scheme, the regional integration of trade, is losing ground. I'm a fervent defender of defending them and of developing them, but we have to understand that we are in a completely different context. For whom are we producing? To whom are we selling? And this is a question we need to resolve for the continent and the whole world. Since you're talking about China, I'd like to ask to President Puerta if he believes that the dependency of Latin America with China is a concern. Is it a problem? The problem is not China and the United States or Europe. The problem is the fact that each government must understand that there should be a harmonization. The problem is that they have to understand that playing as a team is beneficial. Working with the EU is very important for Latin America. It's a big mistake, according to my view, those that are afraid to negotiate with a bigger player. In negotiations, there's always negotiations between the bigger and the smaller generally wins because the market is bigger. So I'm interested in China, such as I'm interested in Europe and the United States, but we have to strengthen this scheme, and Morocco is going to play a fundamental role for its geographical position, its great and very broad vision. They accept diverging opinions, and also, since Latin America and Africa are on the same ground, we are going to find more benefits than if we have an economic partnership with China. China is growing. What I'm interested is democracy. Politics is different than economy, but they work hand in hand. So consequently, we should not discriminate. We should not be afraid. We should not leave anybody outside of the game. We have to learn to play with everyone. Sir, what about the dependency on China? That many people, there's a large, a big Latin American, Argentinian politologue that says that normally the capitalist countries, they should be, or they used to be capitalist. So the capitalist countries used to be democracies, but we are now in a capitalist system, sometimes in a non-democratic country. We have to open our minds to new formats of organization, new types of solutions, because there are things that do not work anymore. So we have to adapt. Second thing, it's a law of physics. We have to understand that whenever there's an empty space, the law is that nature is afraid of the void, so somebody's going to fill it. So Latin America disappeared from the radar of the United States, but there is also a big power that is very close to us. There are many problems in the world. We were left aside, and there were markets, there were fundings, there were very little questions, and they were occupying this space. And now we have a horizontal line in South America between Ecuador and Peru until the Atlantic Ocean. You will realize that in a very short period of time, there will be United States as a first commercial partner, but also China will remain. So if the world is organized like this, we have to agree with Ramon. We cannot choose between one partner and another. It would be impossible that one of the big players would stop negotiating with us. We cannot do without, because economies are integrated, and we have to keep on in this way. Indeed, but I think that if it is impossible to choose one or the other, I believe that President Puerta, it is important to diversify, and we're talking about Morocco here. I'd like you to talk about opportunities that Latin America has of partnerships with African countries, for example. Yeah, President Mawad has a very clear and state vision of first level. I believe that the region has to have a better understanding for the negotiations that should happen at the same time. We cannot lose the opportunity to integrate under a global perspective because we work regionally. Both things should be done at the same time because you can be more powerful in negotiations when you are playing with more players and you have better results. But we should not lose time. We have to do both things at the same time. Okay, please, what kind of opportunities do you perceive for Latin America working with African countries? Well, we produce similar things, and we could also be complementary. The scale of production also is going to bring efficiency throughout better results, better quality, and less costs. We could integrate that vision, and this is why I want to insist on Morocco, because the decision of organizing encounters of this nature are very important, because generally Africa tends to discuss with the North and Latin America discusses with the North. But if we discuss South to South, we will have better results. Do you have a comment about this operation? Or cooperation, yeah. I believe that this event should keep on taking place here in Rabat, in Morocco, in the north of Africa, because where are we going, demographically speaking? There's one of the panelists that said that the number of children born in Nigeria, you remember, only for Nigeria, was bigger than the number of children born in the whole year in Europe. So that's what will happen demographically for the end of the century. China has lost half of its population. There will be 700 million inhabitants very soon. It's the most populated continent of the world that will become Africa very soon. So we have to understand that for people to keep and stay in Africa, we need to generate opportunities. Otherwise, the pressure on Europe will be very, very big, because there's only a stretch of water between Africa and Europe. So it's fundamental that we put in place some new cooperation mechanisms. At the same time, also, it's hard because if we have two magnets that are drawing everything, I'm talking about the United States and China, how will we generate sufficient trade fluxes between the rest of the regions of the world? And it's very important for the rest of the world to keep it alive. And I understand that it's very important that other countries have to become a little more than exporters of natural wealth or natural or raw material. And I understand that there are very many critical raw materials in Africa. What do you think, President Puerta? I'd like to understand how you perceive, what is your reflection as to how we could maybe become a little more than a country only with minerals to exploit and natural resources that should be exploited. I think this is because we have a lot of primary production. The three levels are very important: primary, secondary, which is industrial, and the third stage, which is the big technological challenge with the marketing and services. But everything should be done simultaneously. I think that people who think that they can climb step per step, it's a big mistake. They have to be able to do everything at the same time. And in Latin America, we have a large experience. We are used to negotiating with the United States, Europe, and China. And we're used to living sometimes with bitter taste in the mouth, but sometimes with a lot of satisfaction. So we should not leave anything aside, nor the green wave, nor artificial intelligence. We have to open the space that is available to us. There is a window of opportunities. We should not lose it, not only as primary producer of raw materials, but also with high technologies. Even in the atomic field, we have been doing some extremely high-level accomplishments. We have to also learn how to use AI. Many countries think that Latin American countries are becoming obsolete, but we have to be able to bring intelligent solutions to the service of peace, to the service of progress, and to harmony, not serving conflicts, because a conflict is going to hurt all the people involved in the conflict. Would you like to keep on commenting on that? Yes, I'd like to refer to two players: climate change and the geopolitical realms. There's a third factor that comes along. It's technology. So two examples that could illustrate everything. I heard a very interesting debate about AI here yesterday, and I heard that within 10 years, it will be possible to go from Los Angeles to Dubai in 20 minutes. And many will think that they're going to develop much more powerful engines. No, we will change the mental chip. If we go to the stratosphere, they will wait until the Earth will turn, and when we reach Dubai, we go down. So there are more than 400 versions of ChatGPT that exist already, and AIs will exchange between each other. Many times we don't know what these AIs are discussing, and to make it even more complex, some AIs have concluded that English is the most broadly used language, but it's easier to discuss with machine language. They don't discuss a language that we're able to understand, and they're becoming more and more intelligent. So they grow in intelligence. This is the realm where we are moving forward. What is left to Latin America? They have resources. They have a high percentage of fresh water of the planet. They have a capacity to transform it into also green energy. And also they have a fundamental asset. Mr. Mahmoud says it many times. It's the only peaceful continent in the world. Latin America has the world record of having been able to solve problems between its members and its countries throughout peaceful negotiations and not throughout war. And I think that peace now is a very important asset as the world is evolving nowadays. So one of the key points, and this is something we have to be able to bring also, peace is something that should be looked throughout a special prism because there are lots of tensions in Venezuela, indeed. But I'd like to talk about a very important point about natural resources, and I also would like to discuss the green economy, because they were discussing with a Brazilian scientist yesterday, and I heard that they needed more green projects, but they need investments to be able to put these green projects into practice. What do you think, President? What can we do in Latin America to put more into practice these projects? I think that what President Mao said about peace has a lot to do with the configuration of Latin America. The three monotheist regions are living in our country. There are no fights between a Jew, a Muslim, or a Catholic. And this is not a miracle. It's a political and cultural model that has the advantage of being able to draw benefits from the green wave. And the green wave cannot be excluding others. It should be used to harmonize with the investments and be at the service of a group with different migratory currents that arrive to our land. Instead of fighting, let's harmonize them and create multicultural families. And even if they have different origins and in their country of origin they cannot agree, but in Latin America we have lots of points, lots of bridges. And it's also the case of Africa. We have to repeat the importance of an encounter such as this one, and let's not be fanatic for one position, nor the green wave, nor AI. Of course, we should not leave them aside or disregard them, but we have to integrate them. I'd like to learn more about the opportunities. Are we losing the opportunities of the green economy? 2 or 3 reflections about that. First of all, I'm a full partisan of the transition towards a green economy and towards green energy. But I'd like to invite everyone to ask all needed questions, because there should not be only an idealistic vision. First of all, we have to draw a line between a mature technology from an embryo of a technology. Lots of people are saying that the oil is responsible for everything, but it's a mature technology with a high possibility to produce energy, and with the disadvantages that we know. But to produce green economy, what is the amount of normal oil that we need to spend to create the whole networks of electrical transmission? Because these projects are going to be fed by hydraulic or by solar power. So where are the grids of distribution? Secondly, the possibility of oil is that it's easy to accumulate, it's easy to store, but storing solar energy is very costly. So we could also make a comment with regard to wind power. These are the 2 alternative sources that are the most developed, but others will come. So how much does it cost? And it seems that we still have to think about that. I don't know how much time the world spent analyzing the financial cost that this will have for the world. It will cost trillions of dollars to make that transition. In the meantime, we still have to use the former type of fossil fuels. Of course, we can go towards change, but we have to really understand the cost. But we think that we are very close to the green transition, or the transition to a full green economy, but it's a dream. We're very far from that. Okay, let's have a reflection about the future. President Puerta, what do you think that the future could be for Latin America? Let's put 5 years ahead of today, or maybe 10 years. What do you think? How do you perceive the future? The future is uncertain for everyone. We also have to look it throughout doses of optimism, and we should not make too quick decisions. Those that make very quick decisions are really finding themselves in trouble. There's been a whole fashion for cattle breeders. They have been saying that the horses and the cattle was creating pollution or CO2, but everything is complementary and everything is improvable. If you destroy something that is pre-existing and you have no solution to replace it, you have to be very careful. We are in a democratic and culturally well-prepared system, and then if we are optimistic, we will have lots of possibilities, not in 5 years or 10 years. The way is much longer than that, and we have to be working in continuity, and alternatives have to be gradual, and transitions will be positive for everyone. President, within 10 years, where do you think we are going to reach? What will we be? I think that you have to understand that it is very hard to make forecasts, in particular about the future. Okay, let's try to carry an exercise of projection. I have a gas example. When a dog is running after a rabbit, it is not following directly behind. He will imagine the trajectory of this rabbit to make a shortcut and reach it faster. So this is how we should behave. It will depend on the actions and decisions that we will make. But according to my experience in the public sector, a good public policy is just like a table with 3 legs. We need a technical leg, We need to carry out studies. We need to technically have a good technical leg. We need a second leg for holding this table. It's social acceptance, social embracing. There's a very famous sentence in Africa that says, "You can't scratch my head if I'm not there physically." So you can't put in place a policy that is totally at odds with the cultural and social culture of the country where you want to apply it. And it must be politically viable. It requires conversations, agreements. I have dollarized the Ecuadorian economy. There was a package of laws that were done to keep the local currency. If you are a democratic country, how can you do it without the shared agreements, etc.? So it depends on what you're doing, and I'm a bit pessimistic about that. I think we've lost in Latin America a bit of the global perspective. Sometimes we are more into a regional perspective. So we are too focused on local and minor conflicts. We need to have a global vision. We need to have the big picture. And this is a must. Okay, President, the other day I heard that in Argentina, you said that in Argentina sometimes we need an effective remedy for an effective situation. What is the effective remedy for the effective disease that Latin America requires? And I'd like to put a bit pressure on you because I also want President Puerta answer this question. What is the remedy? I think that we agree with Ramon. The main problem in Latin America is the same. We always have to talk about the elephant that is present in the crystal shop. The big problem is drug trafficking. It's in all the spheres of society. Drug trafficking, narco traffics are everywhere. It's not two democratic visions of a social situation. It's a matter of will narco traffickers take control of power, and they are an international mafia. We have to organize ourselves internationally with a multilateral cooperation to stand against them. I think that the president put the finger of a very easy topic to visualize. It's very serious, and that's the reality today for these drug traffickers to exist. They need to be associated with corruption. Without corruption, this comes from the decomposition of an institutional system. So if democracy is rotten, a political party is rotten, it gives way to corruption and to drug trafficking. Without corruption, we will get rid of that. And if a country has more corruption, it means that it goes backwards instead of moving forward. Thank you very much. So we have to solve and clean our houses first. So, okay, I think that our conversation is concluding here. Thank you very much, President Puerta, and thank you for this encounter.
Muchas gracias.
Ladies and gentlemen, panelists are asked to remain on stage for a group photo.
Felicitaciones. Muy bueno.